Since ancient times, armor has been used in ceremonies and warfare. It came in many different types, but out of all the leather, Kevlar, and wood, the most iconic armor is that of the knightly pleated suit worn by European nobles in the Middle Ages. What knights wore depends on the century and culture. For this video, I will be explaining armors in the 11th to 16th centuries. Knights have existed since the 8th century, but it is in the 11th century, the age of Gregorian reforms and Scandinavian Christianization, that we see the first real look to the equipment of knights. Their main code of protection is chainmail, which is these metal rings linked together to create the hooded hauberk you see here. On their heads they wore a conical helmet. Sometimes it comes with nasal protection. There have yet to be adequate protection for the legs and forearm. Under mail they wore either a tunic or gambeson, and brace on their crotch. Moving on to the age of crusades, armor evolved quite a bit in the 12th century. Chainmail was still the main material of protection, of course. Under the mail was a gambeson, which protects the body from heavy blows, and on top the mail was a surcoat, which protects the mail from damage. The conical helmet evolved into the flat-top helm and the enclosed helm, both of which would later evolve into the great helm. The 13th century was a big year for arms and armor. Mail was still the main form of protection, and so were the surcoats over it. This time, however, the hauberk protects both the hands and feet. The biggest change of equipment in this century was the introduction of the iconic flat-top great helm, often associated with the Teutonic Knights. Two other helmets came along as well, such as the sugarloaf helm and the cattle hat, for those willing to risk more protection for more visibility. In the 14th century, we finally got to see the plated armor. The late 14th century armor is the result of rapid experimentation during the Black Death. Different plate armor pieces went in and out of fashion until it all eventually cluttered together to create the full plated armor. So, for the majority of the 14th century, mail was still the main form of protection. On their head, the full-plated knights either wore a large great helm or a bascinet. The most popular type of bascinet was the pig snout helm. The breastplate and gorget didn't exist yet, so knights had to wear mail, leather, or cloth protection instead. So surcoats were still a popular fashion choice. The 15th century was huge for the development of the knight armor. Full mail went completely out of fashion for the knights in favor for the more protective full plate. Now that surcoats no longer were in use, this sparked a period of uncovered armors, otherwise known as white armor. White armor came in two main cultural aesthetics: the German Gothic armor and the Italian Milanese armor. The Milanese armor is known for its rounded shape, asymmetrical design, and placard. Gothic armor are known for its sharper shape, fluting, and sallets. Helmets came in a huge variety of sallets and armets. The most extravagant kind can be seen on jousting tournaments. The anatomy of a full-plated armor is as follows: helmet, gorget, spalder, pauldron, residue, reverbrace, coulter, vambrace, gauntlet, cuirass, fault, tasset, collet, mail skirt, or a codpiece if you really want to, pauline, greave, and sabaton. All these pieces may sound heavy, but in reality, the knight armor only weighs around 15 to 25 kilos on average. Not to mention, the weight is evenly distributed throughout the body, allowing for surprisingly high mobility, unlike chainmail. The dawn of the medieval age and the rise of the Renaissance brought fine art to the 16th century. Art was at its peak at this age. A new style of armor popped up: Maximilian armor. Maximilian armor are heavily stylized, sporting careful craftsmanship and artistry. Flashy ones with engravings and paint are called parade armor, but don't let its name deceive you, for they were used in combat as well. Unfortunately though, the 16th century was also the time when guns and crossbows became popular, which decreased the usage of armor in war. But armor didn't suddenly disappear overnight. In fact, the knight armor and musket coexisted as far back as the 15th century, and nobles no longer became the backbone of military expeditions. And that's the known history of knight armors from the 11th to 16th centuries. So, what do you do if, hypothetically, a knight rushes to you with a sword hell bent on killing you? What items can you use to defend yourself? Realistically, your best bet is to run away, as even though armor is highly mobile, it isn't breathable like chainmail, so it decreases your average stamina. The most effective weapon against knights are spears to pierce through blind spots or blunt trauma such as maces. A dagger too is an effective weapon against armor, though each of those options would more likely than not lead to your demise. The armor's high mobility and invincibility made the knight a formidable opponent. And that is all I have to say for the knight armor.